Schools train people to be ignorant with style. They give you the equipment that you need to be a functional ignoramus. American schools do not equip you to deal with things like logic. They don't give you the criteria by which to judge between good and bad in any medium or format. And they prepare you to be a usable victim for a military-industrial complex that needs manpower. As long as you're just smart enough to do a job and just dumb enough to swallow what they feed you, you're going to be all right. But if you go beyond that, you're going to have these grave doubts that give you stomach problems, headaches, make you want to go out and do something else. So I believe that schools mechanically and very specifically try and breed out any hint of creative thought in the kids that are coming up.
Yep, I'm part of the management team now, Mama.
Oh, baby, I'm so proud of you.
It's only afternoons.
But still, it's a promotion.
I gotta get back to work.
Guess what, Anna?
Calvin is the new manager at McDonald's.
Straight up. Cal's been honored at Mickey D's, so they gave him his properties.
He owns a McDonald's and just got his property.
For real?
Calvin?
Calvin, they used to hang out on the corner?
So you own McDonald's?
No, not yet.
So with this video, I want to really focus on who these individuals are that are pushing the narrative forward, whether they know it or not. Because the ones who are pushing the hardest are the ones who don't know. The ones who are completely vested in the two-party system. The ones who can't let go of heliocentrism. The ones who will follow blindly the Western mechanism straight off a cliff, straight into genocide. It's the norm to support some of the most heinous acts ever committed. And it's only getting worse because people are getting more ignorant.
So you guys asked for Red Bull. So this is the urine result for Red Bull. Switch it around so you can get some good reading. It's still reading. We'll come back once the results are up. So the results are in. Red Bull was positive for amphetamine, benzos, cocaine, meth, and oxy. Can you guys stop drinking this, please?
No wonder I feel I'm always high.
Can you guys stop drinking this?
With more information that's available to people, you have more of an ability to mind control people, to distract people, to create other narratives, micro storylines that will eventually lead back and are fueled by the macro storyline. So what are those macro storylines? A couple of videos ago, I mentioned the importance of recognizing the difference between the knowers and the believers. So to revisit that discussion and step a little further into that dialogue, I wanted to expound upon the individuals who maintain that space, maintaining in particular the idea of a believer, and really kind of hash out who are these players on the board? What pieces are we dealing with right now? If this was a chessboard, who's on the board? Because we already know who the believers are. These are the masses of people who blindly follow guidance, laws, mandates, rules, regulations, anything that's put out by the system, the standing army. And we all know that fear maintains that belief system. People have a fear of questioning themselves, let alone questioning a system of authority.
I'm really, really sorry. I didn't realise that it was...
Why are you laughing? It's not a funny situation. You're supposed to be apologising.
They have a fear of being laughed at, ridiculed, dismissed, left out, forgotten, being alone. That's one of the biggest fears, being alone or being on your own. Because you can be with people and still be on your own. And Usually that's how it is right now. And really that's how it is in the smaller circles where people are walking into a space of knowing. You're not necessarily alone, but for the most part, you're on your own. We're together in a state of mind. But when you step from believing into knowing, that knowing takes a responsibility. Your responsibility. You're stepping out onto a ledge that isn't supported by anything other than you. Not saying that there's nothing there to hold it up, only saying that when that part of you gets addressed, you are responsible to hold that weight. It's not the information, it's not the truth, it's not the history, it's not what you're bringing to the table. You yourself are responsible to hold that weight, just as when somebody talks about space or spaceships or anything like that. In the believer world, the believers don't have to hold that weight. Why? Because Elon Musk holds that weight. Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the westernized government, the university systems, your school books, NASA, they hold all the weight. They are the ones responsible solely for that information, for that lie.
No one trusts the government.
Point being, why would you trust your kids to be educated by the government?
Right. Vodi Bachman said, don't be surprised when you send your kids off to Caesar and they come back as Romans. Like, that's it. That's it, man. You're wondering why everyone's gone woke and has no idea what bathroom to use anymore. Just if like, what happened to our kids? I'm like, well, you gave them to the government for their entire childhood. You saw them at dinner and you attended their sporting events, but the government raised your kids, and social media helped, and video games or whatever. But you saw them every day, but you didn't raise them. You didn't log enough hours each day to counteract all the poison and time wasting and ideological propagandistic crap that they were getting fed year after year after year. And so millennial generation and now Gen Z has gone woke. And we feel like, oh, what happened to my daughter? We raised him better than that. No, I mean this in love, but you didn't raise him at all. That hurts to say because I know it hurts people to hear, but the government raised him, and that's what happened.
So really, when you're talking about moving from a belief-based state of being into a knowing state of being, you're asking people to walk out of the comfort and the protection, the security that they get from being a part of the crowd. And you're asking them to step out on their own. Not everybody is equipped to do that. It takes a rare breed of people, of minds, to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, pretty much up against the whole world. Sometimes we forget that. It's not necessarily a part of our everyday engagement. It can be, but for the most part, those interactions that you have with other people, with yourself, really come only when you bring it to the table. Because once again, in that believing world, it's designed this way to have people pretty much just avoid the discussion completely, avoid the narrative, avoid the dialogue completely, because once again, they are not responsible. It's the norm for them to not feel responsible because they download the pride like a suit. They download the pride, the arrogance that gets promoted by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, by the university system. We know this. We know everything there is to know about the universe. If you think anything other than what we know, what we say, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're whatever it is that they want to call you. And since they have the fancy cars, the fancy degrees, the PhDs, the Nobel Peace Prizes, they got the awards from the presidents, all this shit. They have every worthless piece of accreditation backing their mind controls.
Capitalism is good because capitalism is freedom. Socialism is bad because socialism is tyranny. Not as an aspect of tyranny, socialism itself is tyranny.
So if you read Milton Friedman and other apostles of so-called libertarianism, they don't call for democracy. They call for what they call freedom, which is a very restrictive concept of freedom. It's not the freedom of a working person to control their work, their lives, and so on. It's their freedom to submit themselves to control by a higher authority. That's called freedom, but not democracy. They don't like democracy, and they're right. Capitalism and democracy really are inconsistent. They're in favor of private tyranny, the worst kind of tyranny. Tyranny by unaccountable private concentrations of wealth.
One thing I really didn't think about until in this moment just now was what you're really asking of people when you're presenting information. What you're asking somebody to do when you present a particular topic, a subject that they are uncomfortable with, that challenges their entire being, their mindset from childhood up till now. You're challenging every single cell that has been programmed. These, like water being programmed, these cells in these individuals have been programmed by these people, like the Dr. Masaru Emoto water experiments.
And they don't know it because the media is bought and paid for. This is a hell of a betrayal of the American people when you will not tell them the truth because you're afraid that if you tell the truth, your bosses will take your job from you. That's a hell of a thing. You don't have a democracy when you don't have a free press.
Go to CNN.com.
You're all slaves, and you love it. So you deserve what you get, the erosion of your democracy. You'll soon be the laughing stock of the world.
That works out to less than 50 cents a
It's a damn shame.
Taping a word to a mason jar and seeing what that rice does inside the jar, what that water does, how it's programmed inside the jar over a certain amount of time. Imagine generations upon generations of people mason jars being programmed with school, taping these belief systems to our bodies. This is what NASA shirts are at Target.
You see my face in every place.
Boy, ain't nobody worried about your head. Get in that car and drive the fuck off. Lying. Man, study you and you can protect yourself. Trust me.
It's changing your genetic cell structure. This is what epigenetics is. Those of us who have been subjected to a racist criminal history, genocide, colonialism, stealing our history, stealing our land, stealing our resources, stealing our sense of self, changing the definition of our country to fit their narrative, coding your cellular structure to think, act, and feel a particular way.
Do not put a tree inside your house and decorate it because that's idol worship. And when you put the candy cane on the Christmas tree and you take from the tree and eat the candy canes, now you're looking for the tree to provide for you, so you're idolizing the tree. This worship practice is for a demonic spirit. The Christmas tree is an altar, a demonic altar for a spirit. Some of y'all just gonna refer to him as Santa Claus. So what do you do with altars? You decorate it and then you sacrifice something, give it offering so for something in return. With Christmas, you decorate your tree and then you sacrifice and give an offering of cookies and milk.
The clothes you wear, the books you read, the food you eat, the lessons you learn, all of these manipulated, coming from sinister, broken, intelligently calibrated sources with a particular design. That design meaning to control you at the base level of your experience. Not just your mind control, but your cell control.
So now you're allowing this spirit to come in your house, eat what you gave it, and then so in return forgives. When you mix up his name, Santa, Satan, Claus, Lucas, Lucifer. So you're building an altar for Satan. It has The day has absolutely nothing to do with the mass of Christ.
Before it gets to your mind as the computer, before these programs get to your mind, before they get to your computer, these narrative controllers are controlling the code, the words that are written to activate that software.
Something that doesn't sit right with you.
I'm about to read you this word for word so you don't have to. This information is very researchable. Between 1502 and 1503, Caesar Borgia hired Leonardo da Vinci to be an architect and engineer, in which him and Leonardo da Vinci became intimate lovers in a homosexual relationship. Expressing his love for Caesar, Leonardo painted pictures of him. Caesar's father, Rodrigo Borgia, who later became Pope Alexander VI, under the authority of the Catholic Church elite, had his son's picture up as Jesus Christ in the Western world, and ordered every picture of a black Jesus destroyed. Caesar also had relations with his own sister Lucrezia, and killed his own brother Giovanni in 1497. And this is the man whom the Catholic Church gave their consent to allow his picture to be put up, and to be portrayed as Jesus Christ.
What's happening in the world of narrative control is that people who speak in that world of we, us, them, on that large scale, when they speak on that, they're not talking about the words used for that control. They're not talking about the coding that goes into the software that controls the hardware. At best, they're talking about the hardware. These narrative controllers never get to the software. And if they get to the software, they're only getting to the space of talking about how that software affects the hardware. They're talking about programs and apps. We're talking about codes and algorithms. This is the difference between knowers and believers. There's a space in between the knowers and believers that maintain a wall there. These are your speakers, your Russell Brands, your Joe Rogans, your Neil deGrasse Tysons, your people who speak on those platforms.
Countries where government tells you what books you can read and what books you can't. Countries that own all the media and just pump out propaganda and put dissidents and reporters in jail. Countries where it really doesn't matter who you vote for because the fix really is in. And people in power do whatever they want. And where corruption is rampant because there's no accountability. When that happens, people get hurt.
The in-betweeners, your Jimmy Dores. These are the people who can't let go of the hardware. And when I mention hardware, I'm talking about Western democracy, capitalism, the 1492 mentality, maintaining the structures, the institutions as they stand, never getting to the core, the root of the problems, pretty much submitting to the power, to the control that exists already. They haven't completely stepped into the space of knowing. The only way that they can attract people, their demographic is a demographic of believers in transition.
They think they are saving the world by buying electric cars. I have some bad news for you. No, you're not. So think about people with the mindset of electric cars that we are not using internal combustion engine cars. We're not using fuel. We're not using gas. We're not using diesel. We're not using petrol to drive our cars. Majority of the countries in the world still they use fuel to burn it and then make electricity out of it. In which sense you're saving the world? When you're using the same or more amount of energy to create more energy to get your car powered up. If you really want to save the world, why you are not banning ships, cargo planes? The amount of sulfur a ship creates, that's equivalent to 50 million cars.
They are not knowers. People who are following the Russell Brands, the Joe Rogans, the Jimmy Dores, all the people who are the TYTs, the in-betweeners, they are still in a space of belief. They believe it can be fixed. They believe things can change for the better within this system. They believe that the people who are out there challenging the news, people like Russell Brand who are speaking against the mainstream, they believe that those people are the ones who are going to save, they're the superheroes. They're going to save the day. They're going to save the systems. And whether they know it or not, they're doing more harm than good because they are catering to an energy that means to maintain control, if they cannot let go of that space, those codes, that hardware, this hardware is part of your creature comforts, your survival. This is why it's so hard. This is where the fear comes in. Subconsciously, people can't let this go because they know once they let this go, it's going to attach to all these other systems that are a part of their comfort, their survival, their well-being. And that's scary as hell for a lot of people. For other people, it's like opening the door and letting the air in. It's like they've seen a part of themselves that they've never seen before.
If you keep hearing misinformation year after year, generation after generation, you're going to be programmed. Don't try to see this right now, for real. This guy on the left, that's Tay Diggs. He is classified as black by his skin. Okay? Do you see this? The guy on the right, he's from Hindustan. He's darker than Tay Diggs, but they don't call him black. So you really trying to tell me, if you're going based off of color, which is a fraud, Tay Diggs, Moorish complexion. The guy to the right is from Hindustan. He's Hindustani. They don't call themselves black. They're Hindustani. But you trying to tell me that this guy on the left is black?
You smoke crack, don't you? You smoke crack, don't you? It kills your brain cells, son. It kills your brain cells.
Our people been conditioned to love the things that destroy us. Our people love to drink, love to smoke, love to have sex, pills, and love all that, right? But check it out. When you say our people don't like to do, our people don't like to read, but love talking about slavery all day. No, we couldn't read back in the day because of slavery. You ain't no slave now, is you? So why you ain't reading right now?
It opens them up in ways they've never felt before. And in this moment, before I move on, I just wanted to share with people that, first of all, thank you for the support over the years. I read the comments. I'm analyzing the numbers. I look at all the likes, all that. I see what's going on in the algorithms. I know who's there. I know what's up. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I'm honored to be an instrument for this work.
Son, you know, once you start, there's no going back.
So, knowers and believers, hardware, software, the in-betweeners, the maintainers of the belief system. It doesn't matter how much information you share, you expose about a certain belief system, about a certain mind control, about whatever it is. It does not matter about the amount of information you share. What matters is how that information is calibrated when you share it.
A black man cannot have a white man as a friend.
He may have a white man who's friendly, but being friendly and being a friend, I think, are two different things. I think there are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out that...
And I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. Their appetite is the same. Their motives are the same. It's only their mannerisms and methods that differ.
If you are sharing that information from fear, you're also sharing that fear. That fear is as important as the information you're sharing. If you're sharing the information from a state of disempowerment, belief in that belief system, you're doing the people that you're talking to a disservice. You can't share one without the other. The work has to be done in order to share from a perspective that supersedes the information that you're talking about. The majority of people are not going to do that work. The majority of people are too caught up in that system. They got too many responsibilities tied up in the money, tied up in their relationships, their friends, their history.
Took a picture of my dog today and I looked at the comment, man, Unc, you got the dog at the table? Yes. When I date women, say, look, the dog, they're going to get on the bed. They're going to get on the couch. They're going to sleep in the bed. I'm going to feed them table food. If you got a problem with the dogs, let me know now. We can't do anything. I don't care how fine you are. I don't care how much money you make. Dogs ain't going nowhere. They live here. You visiting.
Tied up in the fear. They can only go so far. This is why the system not only likes, but needs these people. They need Russell Brand there. Who else is going to push this disempowered perspective as far as it can go? Who else can do that other than somebody who is still completely vested into that world? If Russell Brand, not saying that he could ever do this, but if he was sharing the perspectives, the energy, the information, the programs that, for example, the Black Panther Party was sharing, do you think, honestly, he would have as much success, as much of a following as he does right now? No. And once again, it's not about the following. It's about the group of people, the calibration of the people who are following him. And not just him, he's just an example of groups of people who do the same things. These middlemen, people like the ones who are on TYT, basically all of your celebrities gone over to TYT, the ones who are in between the Democrats and Republicans. They created this new space. They call it progressive.
Drop it low for Jesus. Keep the Lord in mind. When you dirty wine, drop it for Jesus.
So to start this off, you've had Democrats and Republicans controlling, for the most part, the majority of people, the two-party system. You're either on the left or the right. And once again, who is this catering to? When people are talking about left or right perspectives, what image do you see in your head? What kind of person do you see there?
In the club, shake it to the floor, we're showing love. I'm on the grind, cause for my sins he died. Cause I know I'll be at the pearly gates for sure.
So the very nature of this two-party system is devoid of the original people of this land. It's meant to do that. And not only the original people of this land, but the mindset of the original people of this land that is connected to the mindset of the people around the world who still think, act, and feel like us. The ones who have been subjected to the same criminal actions of this superpower.
I was Muammar Gaddafi killed. Muammar Gaddafi was murdered because he, along with the other African heads of state, were about to bring into existence Africa's first central bank. They were erecting a central bank in Africa, which was going to do what? Back its money to the resources under the ground in Africa. Now, what would that have done to the global economic order? Remember, the United States dollar isn't backed on any natural resource. The British pound isn't backed on any natural resource. The Canadian dollar, the European Union, their currency isn't backed on any natural resource because Europe doesn't have a lot of natural resources. Africa does. So if they would have been successful in creating a central bank of Africa, coming up with a unitary currency, and then backing that currency to the material wealth under the soil, they would have bankrupted every other economic system in this world, from America to Europe to China. That was revolution. And that's why Muammar Gaddafi had to be assassinated, because he was about to help the African heads of state eliminate modern slavery and neocolonialism from the continent.
We're not here alone. The Aboriginal Americans are not alone in this storyline. We are sitting in the same space as the Aboriginal Australians. We are subjected to the same rules, regulations, crimes, genocide as any of the individuals around the world who were originally there before these systems were implanted and built on top of our burial grounds. We are not alone. This is why the suppression of history is such a big problem. Every day I upload a video, YouTube is going into the archives and removing another one from 8-9 years ago. This is what's happening. This is the book burning. This is what happens when you don't speak on the narrative. They will remove your entire existence. So this is what has happened to our people, to the perspectives of our people. They've burned our books. They've killed our leaders. They've hidden our narratives. They've discredited our perspectives. And when all of that has been washed away, what do you have? You have people who are not a threat to their systems being promoted, being amplified in the discussion. And since the majority of people are so fickle in their mindset, because it doesn't take much to believe whatever somebody tells you, the believers of the world are not equipped with the hardware, especially not the software, to process what's really going on the deeper layers. Like a narcissist's control over their victims. They can't think for themselves. They have them so chaotic, so full of fear and anger and whatever it is. They're so confused. They don't know how to think for themselves. This is what we're talking about right now in the mainstream world, in the Western belief system.
My people, listen to what Frank Figluzzi just said on MSNBC.
Brutal reminds us, no, we're not white supremacists, we're white nationalists. And so a portion of society goes, oh, thank God they're not white supremacists. And they don't realize that white nationalism is not American either. So, it's a notion that we should be living separately, that maybe we carve out a part of the United States and put the whites there and stick the blacks elsewhere or move them somewhere. They should go back where, quote unquote, wherever they came from, which was here. So, it's kind of the frog in the proverbial pot of warming water. We go.
Y'all heard what Frank said. Former FBI, right? Frank Figluzzi. We from here.
These are the mechanisms that control the narrative. Think about this. And I see this all the time in these groups and on social media, whatever it is, it's there. Think about this. Anytime you hear people talking about the left or the right, the Democrats or the Republicans, it's inherently dismissing particular storylines. The same storylines that they are dismissing when they're only talking about Democrats and Republicans are the same stories that they are removing from the history books in your education system.
They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box that was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments.
These are the holy stones of Ohio. The oldest known record of the Ten Commandments was found in America, written in ancient Hebrew script dating back to the time of Solomon. The Ten Commandments in Hebrew in Ohio.
So before you even get to speak, your words are irrelevant. Your presence is irrelevant. Your presence is a threat to not only what they're saying, but your presence is a threat to not only their foundation, but the generations of their forefathers that came before them.
The oldest pyramids and the most pyramids are actually in America, if you didn't notice, right? The oldest and biggest pyramid are even in the Americas. The Cholula Pyramid is the biggest pyramid in the world. Its dimensions are 400 by 400 meters, and it has a total volume of 4.45 million cubic meters, and that's almost twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Cholula Pyramid is also a step pyramid, so we're dealing with a very ancient pyramid because step pyramids were the first pyramids. The pyramids in the Americas are all step pyramids, which were the first pyramids. According to Egyptologists, the step pyramid of Saqqara, the pyramid of Djoser, is the first pyramid that the Egyptians built, and it was dated around 2667 to 2648 BC, which was the third dynasty, which is over 4,700 years old.
So in reality, your words are generationally heavier than anything any of these people can say in any moment. This is why your very presence has to be discredited, removed. It's as simple as realizing this. On the left, you have people calling the right white supremacists. On the right, you have people calling the people on the left fascists. So in their world of discussion, you have white supremacists yelling at fascists, fascists yelling at white supremacists. Where does your story fit in there? Do they acknowledge that there's an entire group of people, an entire mindset of people that exists that do not follow their beliefs? There's an entire group out there that says both of you fucking assholes are white supremacists. Both of you are fascists because both of you are involved in a system, in a belief system that doesn't even want to listen to the perspectives that we are bringing to the table. You're acting like we're not even You're acting like we're not even here. So what are they doing when they promote those perspectives? Fascists versus white supremacists. They're pawning off the illusion of discussing these very important subjects. But what they're doing is they're doing it in a way that riles up the emotions of the masses of people. So they're getting you emotionally attached by making you think that they're addressing a very real issue. When you have Democrats calling Republicans racists, white supremacists, it pawns off the illusion of dealing with racism. When you have Republicans yelling at Democrats, calling them fascists, it pawns off the illusion of dealing with fascism. But they're not dealing with fascism. They're not dealing with white supremacy. It's a movie. It's a news report. It's a narrative that will just get passed off, pushed to the side when the next narrative comes into being. And that's where the control is, in the controlling of the narrative. It's not the storylines. It's not in the ability to move groups that are filled with mind-controlled people. That's not real power. That's illusory power. That's like cheap magic. The power's not there. As cliche as it sounds, the power is in the people, the individuals, the actual software of the people. That's why when people ask on this channel, where do we go from here? I consistently bring up the perspective of, well, who's this we that we're speaking of? And is a big we movement really the way we should be going? Is that the next step? Who in the progressive circles, Russell Brand's, TYT, even your Kennedy, Bernie Sanders, who there has ever spoken about reparations, returning the land back to the original people, the crimes against our people, not only here but around the world? Who is speaking about peace in that war? Nobody. There's not one fucking person out there. Boom, box that up, progressive box, put that on the shelf next to the fucking mainstream. Move on to the new age now. Step into the new age. Welcome. Welcome here, brethren. Namaste. It's so wonderful to be in your presence. Great, thank you. Is anybody here talking about reparations? This land that you're meditating on right here? Who were the original caretakers of this land? Oh, well, we are all the caretakers of this land. Source Energy has provided us with all the resources that we need, and it has placed us here in the vortices of this spiritual land, and we have been entrusted to carry the energies of humanity and move it forward in oneness together. We are moving into the fifth dimension. We are bringing in a higher technology from our alien brethren. They're staying away from us because they're just waiting for our consciousness to raise in order to come and speak to us. And we are the ones who are bringing that consciousness higher. Aren't you happy to be here with us in your twin flame? Oh, it's so beautiful. More believers, more mind controls, more dismissal. Take my word for it, I've lived in these circles. I've seen the dismissal firsthand. I've lived in that deflection-based world. Deflect from any of the work that needs to be done. Focus everything on a higher vibration. Don't spend your time thinking about low vibrations. It's so low energy to talk about racism. That's of the past. No, the fuck it's not. It's right now.
What's up, Jake? What up? Where's Calvin? At the J.O.B., man. What? He's still flipping those burgers at Mickey D's? Here's your order.
Thanks, Calvin.
He's not tired of that yet. He could be kicking it with us, man. Having big fun. He says he has a plan, man. Meet the newest member of our management team, Calvin.
Congratulations.
All right, man. Manager, dude. Cool.
So, in their world, we're low energy. We need to focus on a higher vibration. All right, fine. If that's us, fine. Fuck it. You guys are high energy. We're low energy. We can't be a part of your movement. All right. Box that up. Put it on the shelf next to the other shit. So where do we go? What do we do? In the mainstream world, it doesn't matter what we actually are. It matters what we're seen to be. So we're still seen to be violent, criminals, speaking on storylines that don't matter anymore because George Soros funds Black Lives Matter. So any kind of black race or racial perspectives, they don't matter because it's being controlled by the powers that be. So you can't talk about race because George Soros is also talking about race and he wants to control the dialogue. So the race discussion is off the table. Boom. That same perspective carries over to the progressive movement. But in the progressive movement, they amp it up a little bit more and they say, oh, well, you must be one of those Republicans because you're not with us. You're not with the LGBTQ movements of the world. You're not for bettering the world with fixing climate change and bringing technology to the world to heal the world. You're not with us. You must be a conspiracy theorist. That's a better term. In the progressive world, they label us as Republicans and conspiracy theorists. In the New Age world, they label us as low energy, low vibration, stuck in the old world. In the mainstream, they don't have to label us anything. The system has labeled us for hundreds of years.
Yo, Calvin. Welcome to the hood. May we help you? So, nothing much. Well, I'm out. Hey, yo, Calvin. Now, what's the word on that job thing? Oh, man, you know, not for me. For a friend of mine.
We're the criminals. Who the fuck is going to listen to people like that? People who cannot think for themselves are going to see us like that. So people in the mainstream, definitely not thinking for themselves. They're going to see us the way they tell them to see us. People in the progressive movement, they can't think for themselves. They want people like Russell Brand and Jimmy Dore and TYT to think for them. And since what we are saying threatens their bullshit movements of forward progress and progression, since what we are saying undercuts, just completely cuts the legs out of their bullshit because they still believe in that system, since what we are saying challenges the core of their reality, they call us conspiracy theorists. They call us Republicans. And in the New Age community, we're low vibration, low energy, part of an old world that's not gonna advance to the higher dimensions. Fuck you in every dimension. Kiss my ass in every chakra. So now that we get to this point, we lay everything out on the table. At every layer of discussion that we bring to the table, at every group of dialogue, of narrative discussion, we are dismissed. So where do we go? What do we do? Now you have a better idea of who we are. Because that we, their we, in the New Age community doesn't include us. Their we in the progressive community does not include us. The we in the mainstream community does not include us. So who is this we speak of now? Because the we that they speak of when they try to use it to attack us, we are all one. We are human, meaning you are not a part of that beautiful storyline filled with love and unity. You are not a part of that we because you are bringing divisive perspectives to this discussion. Okay, well, I never wanted to be a part of your we anyway. Because when we get in our circles, we know who we are.
I'm asking you if you apologize for the unpatriotic remarks that you made.
I'm not apologizing for nothing like that because I don't have to. I'm just apologizing for what I said to the newspapers and to the press.
Mr. Clay,
Muhammad Ali, sir.
Mr. Clay
Muhammad
or
Ali, sir.
Mr. Muhammad Ali, either
Yes, sir.
one.
Just Muhammad Ali.
When you appeared before this commission before, if I recall correctly, you said you were the people's champion?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that you're acting like a people's champion?
Yes, sir.
There's people that you would consider in mainstream, deep into the mainstream world, that pretty much have no foundation to put any of the shit that I talk about. They have nowhere to put that stuff in their world. But when we talk, we are very much a we, because they don't have to know about any of that stuff. They don't have to know to the depths and the detail of where that stuff is coming from. But they are very much a part of that we, our we. We are on the same page because we are reading the same books. We are living the same book.
You know what real sacred marriage is? Real sacred marriage and spiritual marriage is a union of two energies brought on by sex. That's what the origin of the shit was about. Before all the other cultures came and did this other social thing, that's why you notice when a lot of times when you have sex, especially with the women being more open, there's a bond. You know what I'm saying? The brother, he might have to hit it a couple of times, but sooner or later it's gonna get him too. There's a bond that you get by having sex because it's a spiritual marriage of unions of energies. And that's what the real alchemical thing, what whoever you screw in is your wife. The ceremonial thing was based on civilization and cultural. But the real union of marriage and sex is based on a union of energies, on the alchemical term of this thing. You see what I'm saying?
People who are out there generating all these ideas of where we should go, what we should be doing, they have no fucking idea about where you came from, what you went through. How could they include your we in their movement if they have no fucking idea about what we've been through?
Back to the funeral home, about 3 blocks away, an odor met me that nearly knocked me out. I said, what on earth in the world is that? It was Emmett's body. That's how the smell was so strong until it covered a 2 or 3 block area. My father was on one side of me, and Rayfield Moody was on the other side of me, and Jean was at my back. And I shrugged them. I said, turn me loose. I've got a job to do, and I don't have time to be feigning now. I saw his tongue had been choked out and it was lying down on his chin. I saw that this eye was out and it was lying about midway the cheek. I looked at this eye and it was gone. I looked at the bridge of his nose and it looked like someone had taken a meat chopper and chopped it. And I looked at his teeth because I took so much pride in his teeth. His teeth were the prettiest things I'd ever seen in my life, I thought. And I only saw two. Where are the rest of them? They'd just been knocked out. And I was looking at his ears. His ears were like mine. They curled. They're not attached, and they curled up. The same way mine are. And I didn't see the ear. Where's the ear? And that's when I discovered a hole about here, and I could see daylight on the other side. I said, now, was it necessary to shoot it? If that's a bullet hole, was that necessary? And I also discovered that they had taken an axe and they had gone straight down across his head, and the face and the back of the head were separate.
This is why they have that generic ass bullshit approach to movement, forward progress, who we are. It's empty. It's belief. The controlling of the narrative is based upon belief. Belief from half, mis, and disinformed people who are too scared shitless to open up to a deeper layer of discussion. So they will stay in their echo chambers of mainstream politics, of progressive movement, of new age evolution. And if you're not a part of their groups, if you're not a part of their crew, oh well. What a lot of people are failing to realize is that, especially in those groups, the healing, not just the success, but just the making it to an even keel, the healing of the wounds that have been inflicted upon us for hundreds of years, just the healing, just the stopping of that criminal behavior against us, the healing of those wounds is a threat to the livelihood of a huge number of people, not only in this country, but around the world. And what people are not realizing is that not only on the conscious level, because we're not talking about the conscious level for the most part, subconsciously, people will defend these programs to the death. And they won't even know what they're doing. That's where we're coming from. We have to get to the software of these issues. And you can't get to the software of the issue if you're still clouded and bombarded by hardware. If you haven't done that work yourself, you're not going to be able to do that work. You can't jump from software to hardware if you haven't done the work with that software. But what you're having is you have people who are artificially downloading pirated software coming from these systems, downloading this software from these criminal systems, progressive software, new age software, a better mainstream software. They're downloading all this software and all the viruses and malware that comes along with it. Their processors are moving a little faster. They're rebooting everything. It looks like it's changing. It's not. It's only burying itself deeper in those programs. And since that's happening, since they've been so consumed by this positive software, they're not even allowing themselves to move into the hardware discussion. In fact, they've been convinced by those systems who sold them that software, they're being convinced that that hardware is a non-issue. You don't need to discuss it. Just talk about the software. We're all human. We're all one. We're all being attacked right now. This is the heart of the issue. No, we are hardwired to this system, to each other. We are hardwired into the trees, into the earth, into the soil. We are still hardwired, connected to the sun, to the moon, to everything that is natural in this experience. We never severed that connection. We are still here. We are not going anywhere. So for those who are coming to us with their cheap Wi-Fi connections sold to them by a broken system, know that we will never cut these connections.
If you feel it in your chest, it's fear. If you feel it in your stomach, it's your intuition. If you feel it throughout your body, it's happiness. If you feel it in your head, it's anger. If you feel it in your muscles, it's anxiety. If you feel it in your face, it's shame. If you feel it in your mouth, it's disgust. If you feel it in your throat, it's sadness.
You know, I think the scariest part about this discussion is that these individuals are starting to realize that there is no reactivation code for their software. The hardware is changing so much organically. These software programs that are installed as new age and progressive aren't calibrated. They're not equipped to work with the new hardware. So people in the new age community are generating this artificial interpretation of what the hardware is. And they're trying to get ahead of the curve in order to maintain the narrative. But each time they try, each time they reach out to control it, they can't grab onto anything because the code is not there. They're missing something. And part of what they're missing is that they're still in that realm of an outdated and broken belief system. They're not a part of a knowing. People in the New Age community, they don't have a knowing. They have a belief that's painted over with knowingness paint. It's not an organic knowing. People in the New Age and progressive movements, they're not capable of knowing. The very nature of those groups is based upon belief. They believe in everything that has come to be from this Western colonialism.
The design of nominal and contingency missions is the job of the Mission Planning and Analysis Division, MPA. The accomplishment of this task, alternate trajectories must be designed to handle these possibilities. The design of nominal and contingency missions is the job of the Mission Planning and Analysis Division, MPAD. The accomplishment of this task.
They believe in the democratic systems. They believe in the new world, new age systems. It's based upon belief, but it's crumbling. And just like all these other groups, all these other software programs that are being outdated and running their time will come. So now that we have a better understanding of who we are and what the artificial we is up to, now we can start discussing what it is we need to do.